Okay, let's do this right there. Perfect. Okay, in today's class we are going to be talking about filling the frame. Filling the frame is something that we want to consider whenever we are starting with this particular type of composition. So what it is and what it consists of is making sure that we take our cameras and that we actually fill in all of the spots that are inside the rectangular frame, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second. So why would we want to fill in the frame? Well, there's a couple reasons. It's going to add instant impact to your image. It's also it gets rid of unnecessary clutter, and that's going to be extremely important as we move forward, because typically when we take a photo, what we want to do is draw our viewer into the scene without them being distracted with background elements such as clutter. And clutter is things that are just undesirable. So kind of keep that in mind. The other thing it's going to do is it isolates and defines your subject. So when we fill in the frame, your viewer is going to know for sure what your subject is. And that's going to be very, very important as you start taking photos and different types of compositions. You want your viewers to know exactly what you want them to see. So that's going to be important. The next thing that it's going to talk about is how we use viewing the frame. Every time we use viewing the frame, what we're going to do is we're going to use our feet to get close and tight to the subject. So what that means is the very first thing we need to do is use our feet, and we're going to walk close to our subject just like this. I'll go ahead and turn on this camera. And let's say our subject is this dry erase marker. What I'm going to want to do is I don't want to sit back here and take a photo. I'm going to want to use my feet to get really close to the subject, just like this. And that's one way that we can fill the frame. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to use a little zoom to just past a medium amount of zoom. And what that means is this. As I get close to my subject right over here, I'm going to want to pull on the zoom lever just so that it helps me fill in the frame just a little bit. Or I could use a medium, just past medium amount of zoom, and it just does a really, really good job of filling the frame with the subject. I don't want to go all the way out, like all the way out to infinity, because infinity is the part of the lens barrel that just can't go any further. And the reason why we don't want to do that is because, think of it this way. In terms of having a car, your car can go perhaps like 110, 120 miles an hour, but you never go into the car and mash down on that speed pedal to go 120 miles an hour. The car has a sweet spot of where it likes to perform, usually around somewhere between like 30 miles an hour and about 75 miles an hour, where if you drive at those speeds, it's totally okay. Think of the zoom as the same thing. Even though it can go to infinity, we don't want to have it there. So just a little bit before, just a little past medium, or just a little bit amount of zoom will work. Now, one of the things we need to do is be aware of our background clutter and ask what we can do. So if I have some background clutter over here, you guys can't see it, but I have a chair right in the background. Kind of bring that chair out right here. Kind of looks like, oh, you can't even, there we go. There's a chair right over here. And if I were to compose this shot of the dry erase marker and that chair was in the way, well, one of the things I'm going to want to do is consider my angle of approach. So I might want to shoot from here. I might change my angle. My back's, you might not see, okay, my back might be to you, but change the subject. If I can move the subject, physically move the subject, that's okay. You know, and then get as close as you can to your subject, and then change the angle either of the camera or the subject itself. All of those ideas will help you fill the frame. So just as long as there's no background clutter. Remember, we want to eliminate all background clutter. That's going to be very, very important. Always ask, what can I do about this background clutter? And you'll see it in your viewfinder. As you are shooting the image, pay attention to what's in the background. And if there's stuff in the background, again, either reposition the subject or change the camera angle. Both ideas work pretty well. Now, some things to keep in mind as we move forward with filling the frame is your background should be simple and clean. And what that means is we don't want, if we're going to have a background, we kind of want it to be simple and clean. So for example, some ideas of this is to choose a background which is like soft, uniform, or plain, or backgrounds that are out of focus. Both will work. So an example of a background that's soft, uniform, and plain is if you can see this whiteboard right over here, right at the edges of the whiteboard, of this wall, is kind of this beige color background. Okay? That beige colored background is typically soft. So what we could do is choose, because it's all beige, like we don't have anything busy around this background, I would want to use this entire wall as a backdrop or a background for filling in the frame. And the reason why is this one color is not distracting. And what it will do is it will bring out the your subject. So think about that. Also the detail. Okay, detail is going to be important. What that refers to is being able to zoom in and emphasize crisp, sharp detail. We talked about that earlier, so what we're going to want to do, use that zoom lever, just pull in, push out, zoom in to fill in those details so that we can have a sharp, clear detail. And the last one is this. This is going to be pretty important, is our focus. In fact, it's so important that I'm going to put that in blue over here. If it's anything's in blue, make sure you understand that. Okay, so typically when we focus on our subject, we want the sharpest parts to be in focus. We want it to be super sharp. We want our viewers to understand what it is that we're taking a photo of. So when they see particular areas which are sharp, these are the areas which you can bring into sharpness, and that what you want your viewers to see that and draw attention to that. So kind of keep that in mind. Now, so I drew a couple of illustrations to kind of show you what this is, and in terms of filling in the frame. So in frame number one, we've got our subject right over here. We've got a car, we've got sun, and we've got mountains in the background. Now, this is not filling the frame. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark that out. This is not filling the frame. We don't want to do that. Oh, this erase marker's not working. The second one, we just now kind of have zoomed in. We have our subject right over here. This actually is not filling the frame as well. And the reason why it's the background elements here actually have to do with the feet and the torso. Those are not important elements in our photo, nor is the ground that he's standing on. Now the third photo right over here is getting better, but technically it's a toss-up. We're kind of filling the frame, but we're kind of not. But the reason why is now we've got shoulders, the neck, a little bit of the torso and the arms. It's 50-50 right there. We've cut out the subject's waist. It's okay, kind of okay. But without a doubt, when we move into these three photos, we filled in the frame. So right over here, frame number one, or I'm sorry, frame number 4, we've just got the subject's head and his neck. All right, in frame number 2, we have his entire head, but notice we've cut off the tops of his head, a little bit of the bottom of the chin. That is actually okay. You can do that, so kind of keep that in mind. And the third part is just the subject's eye. That's okay as well. We definitely are drawing attention to these particular areas, the eye, certain types of facial features. And again, it's okay to cut off limbs. Don't feel like it's a bad thing, but you can go ahead and do that. So keep those things in mind in shooting and filling the frame.